Hello Math 20-2 and welcome back. Today we are going to determine the roots of quadratic equations. Another way of saying that is finding the zeros. You might have heard of that before. So I strongly recommend you doing this here, and that will help you explain this, especially if you don't understand this next step. When I say complete, if A times B is equal to 0, then A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0. One of them must be equal to 0. Because anything multiplied by 0 is equal to 0, right? So, let's take a look at this here. It says, complete the following work, use the zero product law, can be used to, or complete the work below. Use the zero product law to solve. Okay, so here is my equation. It's weird. Notice how we get that? That's in factored form. So this is related to factoring. So, we have this and this. This is multiplied by that. What does that mean? One of these could be 0. This could be 0 and it will equal 0, or this could be 0 and equal to 0. The first side here is solved for you. So let's try and look at the second side now. So what they did here first was they isolated for x and solved for x to figure out it should be equal to 0. So we're going to do the same here. So we add 7 to both sides. Here they subtracted 1 from both sides to get x by itself. So we have 3x is equal to 7. Now what do we have to do to get x by itself? Well, we have 3x is equal to 7, so we want to know what 1 x's are, so we divide both by 3. So I get x is equal to 7 over 3. Now here, the next step is to show that you're right. So what they did here was they put in negative 1/2, and so they got in there for every x. And they looked at 0 multiplied by something, and 0 multiplied by something is always equal to 0. So we're going to see if this is true too. Maybe I made a mistake, I don't know, or maybe it doesn't work. So, let's put it into an equation. So we have 2, and x is now 7 over 3. So we want when x is 7 over 3. So we have 2 multiplied by 7 over 3, and then we add 1, I believe, plus 1. All multiplied by 3, multiplied by 7 over 3, and that's subtract 7. Okay? Well, 2 multiplied by 7 over 3, that's going to give me 14 over 3, plus 1, that's 3 over 3, which will give me 17 over 3. And this here, this is going to give me 7. 3 multiplied by 7 over 3 is 7, minus 7 is 0. And that does work. This is equal to 0, because any number multiplied by 0 is 0. So this side works as well. Yay! We were correct, and it worked perfectly. Okay, so in other words, what we always have to do is solve for the x, and then we do right-hand side and left-hand side. Okay, so here we go. If we take a look at this, solve the following equations. So it wants us to solve the following equations. What must I do? Solve for this side and this side. So we have a right-hand side and a left-hand side. So I know x minus 7 is equal to 0, or x plus 8 is equal to 0, right? So we have to look at both sides. Okay? Now, we get x could be equal to 7. I added 7 to both sides, or take away 8 from both sides, or x could be equal to negative 8. And that is my solution. X is equal to one of those. Let's take a look at this next one here. My product is x multiplied by x plus 10. So I know x could be equal to 0, or, don't let that fool you, some students always forget about that little guy, or x plus 10 could be equal to 0. So those are my two things. So here, this one's done. This one here, I have to subtract 10 from both sides. So I'm going to end up getting x is equal to 0, or x is equal to negative 10. So those are my two answers. So here we go. It says, determine the roots of this equation. It's complicated. We have all these numbers in there. So we could have two roots. We could have 2x subtract 5 could be equal to 0, or we could have 3x plus 2 equal to 0. So let's see which one. Or, well, let's see what are the answers. We have two answers for this. Let's check it out. So first thing, I have to plus 5 to both sides. So I get 2x is equal to 5. All right, now I divide by 2. and I get x is equal to 5 over 2. So there's one answer. Or my answer could be, we have 3x plus 2, so I'm going to take away 2 from both sides. Erase that. Take away 2 is equal to negative 2. Divide both sides by 3, divide by 3. So I get x could be equal to negative 2 over 3. So those are my two answers. So x can be negative 2 over 3 or 5 over 2. Those are my two answers I can have. It doesn't matter what order you put these in, just okay? Alright, let's try the next one. Now, the others we saw were all in factored form. Now, we want to do it and it's not in factored form. So what's the first step we must do? I must first factor this. So let's factor this. I'm going to use my trusted box method, except I'm just going to write it all the way up here. Right? So we have 5 and negative 14. So let's put in my box method. We have negative 14 and negative 5. So what two numbers? If I look at this, it's a negative negative, so one must be positive, one must be negative. So when we subtract them, it gets 5, or when we add them, it gets 5, but when we multiply them, it gets 14. I'm going to say 7, the negative must be bigger, and 2. Okay, so I'm going to have here x subtract 7 and x plus 2. All right. Now, we're saying that is equal to 0. Let's solve for this. Okay. Let's try solve. So now we're back to what we had before. This is nice. We know how to find the roots. So we could have x minus 7 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. There we go. Now, this is x plus 7 to both sides is equal to 7, or x subtract 2 from both sides is equal to negative 2. So those are my two answers. Okay? All right, now, my next one. Oh, look at this. Isn't that looking complicated? It's not that bad, I don't think, though. We have 4x squared and 25. Well, if I remember that, that is something unique. It is a difference of squares. I can square this and square that. So I'm going to get 2x plus 5 and 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. Okay? If I continue this, I'm going to end up getting, I'm not going to do this question here. Or, yeah, well, I'll do this question on another page. I'm going to end up getting, we have 2x plus 5 is equal to 0, or 2x subtract 5 is equal to 0. Okay, so those are my two possible answers I could work with. So I continue this on, I'm going to end up getting 2x is equal to negative 5. So divide by 2, divide by 2, x is equal to negative 5 over 2. Or my other one here is we have 2x is equal to 5. So then I'm going to get divide by 2, divide by 2, or x is equal to 5 over 2. So those are my two answers. Okay? Let's take a look at my next one here. Kind of running out of room. So I'm just going to simplify this on top. I'm going to do this one on top here. Okay, so you can still see it on the bottom. We have 10x squared minus 90x is equal to 0. Well, what can I factor out of both of these? I can take out 10x. Right? That factors out of both. First, see what the factor out of both. So I'm left with x minus 9. So I could have 10x is equal to 0, or x minus 9 is equal to 0. Well, I solve for this. X could be equal to 0. Divide both by 10. 0 over 10 is 0. Or x could be equal to 9. So those are my two answers for that one. Okay? Now let's go back down here, and I'll do D because I have some room again. So this one, there's no x. But can I take something out? Yes, I can. I can take out a 10. We have x squared minus 9. Okay, now what else can I do? This now looks like a different square, so both of those numbers are perfectly square. So square root that, square root that. So I have 10. I'm going to get x plus 3 and x minus 3 is equal to 0. Square root that and square root that. Okay? Now continue this. Let's see. Okay? I have x plus 3 can equal to 0 or x minus 3 equals to 0. I continue this here. Take away 3, so I get x is equal to negative 3, or here, plus 3 to both sides, x is equal to 3. And that's it. All right? So sometimes here the hardest part is factoring out, but it's not that bad. It's just good practice for the factoring. Last question says, determine the roots of these equations. Well, that's going to be hard to do if you look at A. What's my problem? My problem is it's not equal to 0. It's equal to 5. So what must we do? Well, we must make it equal to 0. But first things first, this is kind of factored out. We don't want it factored out. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x is equal to 5. I just multiplied that x in because it's already factored out, but it wasn't equal to 0. So some fool, some person there just did it first, which he shouldn't have done. You should first expand, then move everything, make it equal to 0, then we factor out. So now we're going to have x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, now we can use our box method. So I'm just going to make my little box here. And we have negative 5 and negative 4. Okay? Well, I look at that. I have 1 times 5 is equal to 5. But, and if you subtract them, it gives me 4. And the big one must be the negative. So I have x plus 1, x minus 5 is equal to 0. All right? So we have x plus 1 is equal to 0, or x subtract 5 could be equal to 0, because no matter what, if I put in, if this is 0, doesn't matter what that is, it's going to be 0, right? Because of the 0 law, 0 problem law. And we get x is equal to negative 1, and here we get x is equal to 5. I just subtracted 1 from both sides, added 5 from both sides. So those are my 2 possible answers. So take a look at the next one. Look at this. There's a problem again. It's not equal to 0. I must make it equal to 0. There's nothing to multiply in first, so let's go with negative 3. I'm just going to put this 3x squared there. So I'm going to have 0 is equal to 3x squared minus 13x minus 10. Now, this one looks like a mess to factor, doesn't it? It does. So, I can't divide anything by both of those, so I'm going to have to try and factor it the long way. I'm going to use the box method again. So for this one, we're going to go 3 times negative 10 is negative 30, and we have negative 13. Okay? Now, I look at this. What adds together to get that? Well, I have 15 and 2, so I'm going to go 15 and 2. So I get x plus 15. Oh, not quite yet. Got that. So 15 and 2. So we have negative 15 over 3, and we have 2 over 3. Can this be simplified? That's the same as negative 5 over 1. So I get x, subtract 5, and here we're going to get 3x plus 2. If you remember that from before when we did those box methods of factoring. Okay? So, continue this off. We know this or this could be equal to 0. So we have x minus 5 can equal to 0, or 3x plus 2 can equal to 0. Solve this out. X is equal to 5, or x is equal to, I have to simplify this side a bit more. We subtract 2, so I get 3x is equal to 2, divided by 3, divided by 3, x is equal to 2 over 3. So my answer could be that or this. Okay? Oh, that's negative. Forgot to put in negative because I subtracted 2. So I hope you understood that. Good luck on your assignment as I see you tomorrow as we work on this together.